Welcome to Bosco Campus Vision, the YouTube channel of Kottayam Don Bosco College. I am Raniar, faculty member of Postgraduate Department of English. In this lecture series, I am dealing the paper Language Skills, which is a general English paper for first semester UG students of Kerala University. In today's video lecture, I am dealing the first lesson of third unit in the second module. It is a speech made by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, a Nigerian writer. So this speech is made in 2009 for an American media organization, TED. In that speech, she spoke on the danger of a single story. So, let me begin with an introduction to the writer. So, as I mentioned, she's an African writer. She's a Nigerian writer of novels, short stories and non-fiction. She's a feminist and has written the novels Purple Hibiscus, Half of a Yellow Sun and Americana. These three are very famous novels. The Thing Around Your Neck is a short story collection penned by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. As an African writer, she was highly influenced by the novel The Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. And Adichie spoke on the danger of a single story for TED, that as I mentioned, it is an American media organization in 2009, and in that speech, she expressed her concern for underrepresentation of various cultures. TED is actually an American media organization and the expansion of TED is technology, entertainment and design. So she was delivered the speech in 2009 and here, as I mentioned, she expressed her concern for the underrepresentation of various culture. And in this speech she concluded by noting the significance of different stories in various culture and representation that they deserve. This speech is actually attached in this particular module as a comprehension activity. So after this lesson, I had attached certain comprehension questions as an assignment. Please send the answers through the WhatsApp. Okay, let me begin with the speech summary. The speech was originally delivered at TED Global in July 2009. It is actually the transcripted version. So, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. So, she is a Nigerian writer as well as a speaker. So, in this speech, she recollects her memory of her childhood days and she begins by saying she started reading at an age of 4 and writing at an age of 7. So at the early stage of her life, she started reading and writing. And all she wrote about were the characters that she familiarized in her reading. It was mostly American and British child fiction. So during the age of 4 and 7, she started reading by reading various fictions in America and British. So naturally, the characters in American and British fiction influenced her a lot. So she started writing about the characters she was familiarized in this fiction. So African writers like Chinua Achebe and Kamara Leye influenced her a lot in writing. So later, as she continued her writing, she was highly influenced by African writers like Chinua Achebe and Kamara Leye. And stories from different countries stirred her imagination. So she is an ardent reader. She reads stories of America, Britain as well as Africa. So these stories of different countries stirred her imagination. So later in this speech, she tried to explain her family. She was from a conventional middle class family and was lived with domestic help. Fyde was a houseboy of her house. He was from a very poor family. And for Adichie, their poverty was a single story. So here she mentioned single story. Single story, simply we can say that what kind of idea or what kind of notion we pursue from a person, that is the single story. Actually there may be another variable when we consider that person or that thing in another perspective. So we see only one thing, that is the single story. So when Chimamanda turns 19 year, she went to US for her studies. There she had a roommate, and for her also there was a single story of Africa. So when she reached US, there she had a classmate. That classmate was from US, and for those person, for such a person, that classmate has a single story of Africa. And as per that single story, Africa is a land of poverty and pity. So when a child from Africa came to their hostel, she looked at her with that single story in her mind. So Adichie then explains various perceptions of Africa by different people, include John Locke, a London merchant, and Rudyard Kipling, a poet, etc. Then later in her speech, she mentioned about her visit to Mexico. She had some misconceptions about Mexico. That Mexicans were fleecing the healthcare system, sneaking across the border, etc. But all these notions were wrong. People are creating single story about others. They may not be true always. So what do you mean by this single story in this lesson? Single story is, suppose when I look at a person, I know a story. I know something about that person. So I always looked at that person by keeping this single story in my mind. So that is a single story. But for others, there may be another kind of story about him, another truths or notions about him. That is another thing. But I am unaware of this. I have only a single story. So that is the single story here explains. So people are creating single story about others, but they may not be true always. And the single story creates stereotype, and these are not true always, but are incomplete. So the single stories in our mind, it creates stereotype, what kind of a person he is. So if there is a single story in my mind, whenever I looked at that person, I create that stereotypical personality in him. But what happened then, these are not true always. The story in my mind is not always true, but it is incomplete. So single story robs people of dignity. So on this idea, the speech develops. So this is only an extract from the original speech. So my dear students, please go through the speech and try to answer the comprehension questions attached in this particular video lesson. Don't forget to send the answers of these questions. So this much for today. Thank you and have a nice time.